Namaste, welcome to Nirvega Vidya. In this video, we shall look at the 18th and the final chapter of the Bhagavad-Gita, which is Moksha-Sannyasa Yoga. Now, the chapter begins with Arjuna asking Krishna the difference between sannyasa, which here is translated as renunciation, and tyaga, which here is translated as relinquishment. And Krishna says that sannyasa is the renouncing of actions prompted by desire, whereas tyaga is the relinquishment of the fruits of all actions. Karma tyaga is sannyasa, whereas karma phala tyaga is tyaga. Here, according to what Krishna describes here. And Krishna's view is that yajna, dana, and tapas, sacrifice, charity, and penance, should not be renounced in whatever stage a person is, since they purify the performer. They must, however, be done without attachment to their fruits. The idea that Krishna tries to convey here is that the point he tries to drive home, specifically to Arjuna, is that his philosophy does not focus on renunciation of action, but rather on renunciation in action. One has to engage in actions, but do them without attachment. The attachment has to be renounced, not the action itself. So that is the idea that Krishna tries to convey. Now, Krishna takes up the theme from the previous chapter, and we find various concepts in the 18th chapter too, which are classified based on the Triguna theory. The first one we see is sannyasa itself, which is classified into three. Tamasika renunciation is the giving up of obligatory work. It is unreasonable and due to delusion. There are certain things that a person has to do. There are certain things that are incumbent upon us to do. If a person renounces them, if a person fails to do them, that is tamasika renunciation. It is unreasonable and it is the product of delusion. Rajasika renunciation is when a work is given up out of bodily fatigue. Such renunciation will not benefit the person. Satvika renunciation is when a person gives up both attachment to and the fruits of the work while doing the work without break. So so here we see that we saw in the previous slide that Krishna defines renunciation as as non-performance of actions which are prompted by desire. But when it comes to satvika renunciation, he actually gives the definition of relinquishment. If we go back to the previous slide, Krishna defines renunciation refers to sannyasa and relinquishment refers to tyaga. Krishna defines sannyasa as the renouncing of actions prompted by desires. So sannyasa is the renouncing of actions themselves, which are prompted by desires, kamya karma. Tyaga is defined as the relinquishment only of the fruits of the action, whereas where a person engages in actions but gives up only the fruits. Now, when we look at tamasika renunciation and rajasika renunciation, Krishna speaks about the actual renunciation of actions themselves. But when it comes to sattvika renunciation, we see that Krishna does not speak about the renunciation of action, but renunciation in action, where he says, Sattvika renunciation is when a person gives up both attachment to and the fruits of the work. He is neither attached to the work nor does he expect any fruit from it, which basically is tyaga, relinquishment. He gives up the attachment to the work while doing the work itself without break. He engages in action but he is not attached to it. So that is Sattvika renunciation. Now we find a couple of other important concepts in this chapter, which I'm not sure if they will be relevant from the NET exam point of view, but it is better to be acquainted with them. One of them is the 5 causes of work. Now Krishna tries to drive home the point that that is the final point I mentioned. The idea that Krishna tries to convey by portraying this theory that there are 5 causes for every action that takes place is to let Arjuna know that it is unreasonable and ignorant to think of the self, your true self, as the agent of any action. Do not think that you are going to be engaging in killing all these people. Do not think that you alone are going to be the one killing these people. There are various other causes. That is what he tries to convey. What are the 5 causes of work? Adhishthanam, which is the ground, referring to the body. Karta, who is the agent of action, referring to the Jivatman. Karanam, which are the instruments used to execute the action, referring to the sense organs and the mind and the intellect. Cheshta, which are various movements that take place. Adi Shankara interprets that as referring to the movement of the pranas within the body, because it is the movement of the pranas which vitalizes the body, that gives life to the body to perform actions. And the 5th one is Daivam, which is the supernatural element, what we call as maybe fate or divine intervention, whatever it is. That is considered to be the 5th element, Daivam. And as I mentioned, Krishna tries to convey that these being the causes of all actions, it is ignorance to suppose that the pure self is the agent. Next, This is another concept that Krishna touches upon. He talks about the motives of any action and the summary of work. What constitutes a work? First, we look at karma chodhana, which is what impels work, the motive of work. And Krishna says that it is threefold as follows: Jnanam, Jnayam, and Jnata. Jnanam refers to knowledge. Jnayam refers to the knowable, the object of knowledge. Jnata refers to the knower. This is the Triputty of Advaita Vedanta, the threefold division of knowledge. And Krishna says that only when these three factors come together, any action is possible. So these are the karma chodhana, the impellers of work. As I mentioned, again, I don't know if these would be relevant from the net exam point of view, but in case you get an MCQ, it is just better to be aware of these concepts and know what the terms mean. Next is karma sangraha, which is the summary of work. What constitutes work? Krishna again says that is also threefold as follows: Karanam, which is the instrument of action, that which one uses to engage in an action; Karma, which is the action itself; and Karta, who is the agent of action, the subject who initiates the action. So that is about the Karma Chodhana and Karma Sangraha. Next, again, Krishna continues, and there are various other concepts that will be divided based on the Triguna model here. The first one is Jnana, which is knowledge. Satvika knowledge is that by which one sees oneness in the midst of duality. One sees the permanent and the imperishable in the midst of the impermanent and imperishable. Rajasika knowledge is that by which one has knowledge of the various beings, the knowledge of difference. Rajasika knowledge is what we all naturally have. We see things as separate and we have knowledge of all these separate things. We know different elements or whatever we call as physics or chemistry. That constitutes the realm of Rajasika knowledge. Whatever, if we go by the Mundaka Upanishad, whatever comes as Apara Vidya is Rajasika knowledge. Finally, there is Tamasika knowledge, which is that by which one holds on unreasonably to a petty object or idea as if it were the whole, where one sees the part to be the whole. There is a subtle difference between Satvika and Tamasika, wherein in the subtle, what the person actually perceives is the whole. He perceives the supreme reality itself and considers that to be the whole. Whereas in the Tamasika, what the person actually perceives is not the supreme reality, but he considers it to be the supreme reality. So it is the product of ignorance. Next is threefold karma, which is threefold work. Satvika work is that which is obligatory, done without attachment, passion, or aversion, without seeking its fruit. Rajasika work is that which is done with desire for its fruit by an egoistic agent, expending much energy. There is a lot of energy involved in doing Rajasika work. Tamasika work is that which is undertaken out of delusion without regard for its consequences, any loss that it might entail, the violence that might be involved in the execution of that work, and whether or not the person who does it is competent to do it or not. So these are the things which are not taken into regard when a work is tamasic in nature. Threefold karta, the threefold agents here referring to the doers of action. The Satvika agent is he who is devoid of attachment and egoism, full of resolution, dhriti, and zeal, utsahasa, and equanimous in success and failure, siddhya siddhyo nirvikaraha. Whether he faces failure or success, he is not bothered by it. The Rajasika agent is he who is attached to the fruits of action and also to the action itself, seeks the fruits of work, is greedy, violent, unclean, and lacks equanimity. He oscillates between joy and sorrow, harsha and shoka. He is a slave of both these emotions, conflicting emotions. The Tamasika agent is he who lacks concentration and integrity, is uncultured, stubborn, deceitful, malicious, lazy, pessimistic, and procrastinating. Threefold buddhi, which is the intellect. The Satvika intellect is that which knows action and inaction, duty and non-duty, fear and fearlessness, bondage and liberation. The Satvika intellect functions properly and knows the true nature of all these concepts. The Rajasika intellect is that by which one understands righteousness and unrighteousness, duty and non-duty erroneously without sufficient examination. It does not understand these things sufficiently well. It does not have a proper grasp of these concepts. The tamasic intellect is that by which one understands unrighteousness as righteousness and all things in a contrary manner. There's a typo there, in a contrary manner. It is shrouded in ignorance. So that is about the threefold division of buddhi, intellect. Next is dhriti, which is resolve. The sattvika resolve here meaning what a person holds on to. How do we know that a person's resolve is sattvika? How do we know it is rajasika or tamasika? The sattvika resolve is that by which one maintains the functions of the mind, the pranas, and the senses, ensuring that they do not function against the injunctions of the Shastras. The sattvika resolve is that by which one controls his entire psychophysical being. That is the sattvika resolve, where the focus of the person is on that to attain mastery over the body and mind. The Rajasika resolve is that by which one upholds dharma, kama, and artha, the three of the four purusharthas, and seeks the fruits of actions. The Tamasika resolve is that by which one clings to sleep, fear, sorrow, dejection, and indulgence in sensory pleasures. So that is about the threefold division of Dhriti. Next is the threefold Sukha, which is pleasure. Satvika pleasure is that which is like poison in the beginning, but like nectar in the end. It is born of the clarity of one's intellect. A good thing might be very difficult to start because it does not allow for easy enjoyment. But as one keeps on doing it one starts to enjoy it. So that is what Satvika pleasure is. Rajasika pleasure is that which is pleasurable like nectar in the beginning because of the contact with sense objects, but it is like poison in the end. Tamasika pleasure is that which dilutes the self both in the beginning and the end and arises out of sleep, sloth, and error. Nidra, Alasya, Pramada. Works of the four Varnas. So that is another concept from the 18th chapter which is important. After talking about the threefold division of the various concepts, Krishna says that there is nothing on earth or in the heavens which is not bound by the trigunas. Everything is made up of trigunas and everything is determined, the nature of everything is determined by trigunas. And then he goes on to say how it is the trigunas which determine which act as the basis for the division of varnas, the four varnas. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra. Krishna clearly says that these four varnas are divided based on the predominant guna in them. So the Brahmana, and based on that, the four varnas are divided and certain works are allotted for them. The works allotted to the Brahmanas is restraint of mind, restraint of sense organs, penance, cleanliness, endurance, guilelessness, knowledge, realization, and faith in the scriptures. I would recommend that you refer to the original Sanskrit shlokas to know what terms are used in the shloka for whatever English translation I've provided here, because you could expect MCQs referring to the original Sanskrit words. So do refer to them. I've mentioned the shloka number in the slide. The work of the Kshatriyas is courage, power, skill, resolution, not fleeing from battle, generosity, and might. The work of the Vaishyas is agriculture, protection, and rearing of cows and trade. And the work of the Shudras is of the nature of service. So that is the work of the four Varnas. Now, conclusion. Now, after Krishna talks about the four Varnas and the division of work for the four Varnas, he tries to let Arjuna know that, see, you are a Kshatriya, and there is certain we see that one of the work that a Kshatriya has to take up is not fleeing from battle. He should not run away from battle. That would be against the Kshatriya dharma. So Krishna tries to convey that, see, there is a certain swadharma that you possess. There is a certain character that you have, and there are certain works that you will naturally engage in because of that character. And therefore, it does not make sense to say that you will not engage in that action which is natural to you. Because even if you do resist it, your internal tendencies will not let you do that. And Krishna stresses on the importance of one doing one's own duties, Swadharma, with devotion, since it leads to perfection. He also says again, he repeats this once in one of the initial chapters, but he says again that it is better to do one's own duty, even if it is not a meritorious work, even if it is not a noble work, rather than doing somebody else's duty, even if it is a most noble profession, even if it is a very good activity to engage in. So he says that death by following, does not say it in this chapter, he says it in one of the previous chapters. He says death while following one's own duty is preferable to living by performing somebody else's duty, paradharma. He who has perfected the discipline of renunciation in action, as opposed to renunciation of action, becomes fit to attain liberation. I had mentioned this in my previous video on chapter 17, that the focus of the Gita is not on renunciation of action. Krishna does not ask everybody to give up actions and go to the forest, sit and meditate. The doctrine of Krishna, the philosophy of Krishna is completely action oriented. He asks people to engage in actions, but do actions with detachment, do actions without expectation of results. So it is renunciation in action and not renunciation of action. Krishna makes Arjuna realize that even if he tries to desist from fighting, his inherent tendencies would push him to do so. And to drive home this point, Krishna says, Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe Arjuna tishtati, Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. He says, Ishvara resides in the heart of every being. Ishvara sarvabhutanam hriddeshe Arjuna tishtati, Brahmayan sarvabhutani yantrarudhani mayaya. And he makes all beings revolve as if they were mere puppets, as if they were mounted upon a vehicle, as if they have no control of what is going on, as if they are mounted upon the vehicle of Maya. That is what he says. So he says, all movements that people engage in, the entire realm of Prakriti is bound by cause and effect. So even if you think that you will resist from fighting, your inherent tendencies will force you to engage in battle because that is your nature. You are a Kshatriya by nature. The guna dominant in you is Rajas. So that is what Krishna tries to convey by saying that to think that not fighting in this battle is the right course for you is an ignorant decision to take. In conclusion, Krishna enjoins Arjuna to fulfill his duty by fighting the battle, letting go of all attachments and desires. Now, I have provided a very brief summary of the 18th chapter. It is of course very important. I've even been pertinent enough to skip the famous Sarvadharman Parityajya shloka, but yeah, that comes in the 18th chapter. Sarvadharman Parityajya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tva sarva papebhya mokshayishyami ma shusha. He says, surrender to me, give up all your dharmas. By dharmas here, Krishna refers to all your notions of good and bad, all of that. You give it up. Do actions by surrendering to me. Whatever action you do, do it as an offering to me. Do it as a worship of me. And by doing that, you will attain perfection, which is the first point that I've mentioned. Stresses the importance of doing one's own duty with devotion. It is to do your whatever action you do it as a worship of the Lord, and through that only you will attain perfection. So that is the idea Krishna tries to convey. So again, very brief summary of the 18th chapter, and with this video we come to the end of our series on the Bhagavad-Gita. I do hope that it was helpful for you all. If you like the video, do share it with whoever you think will benefit from it, and also consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you.